So this is Drupal 11, Drupal 12, Drupal CMS, Drupal Starshot. All of the concepts we'll try to talk about how they relate to each other because we get that question all the time. I'm Gabor Hojci. I'm a full stack community organizer at Acquia. It's my made up title because I code tools for things. I maintain upgrade status. I work on videos for stuff. So you'll see one of my videos. I work on social media. I work on event organization. I put keynotes together. So it's a full stack community organization, basically. And my colleague is?
I'm Tim Plunkett. I'm an engineering manager at Acquia, and I'm the technical lead of Drupal CMS. And I do less than he does.
Everybody does a lot of stuff, and we need everybody to put in their things. So we're going to talk about these, but first of all, who are you? Anybody new to Drupal in the room? We have a couple. Okay. Anybody already on Drupal 11? A few of you. Great. Congrats. Drupal 10? Whoa. Almost all of the room is on Drupal 10. Anybody on Drupal 9? Yeah. 20%. Anybody on Drupal 8? Great. Couple people. Drupal 7. Half the room. Yes. Countdown started already. Anybody on earlier versions of Drupal? Yeah, I have a Drupal 6 site somewhere as well. That was fun. Yeah, so, all right. So a lot of you are in Drupal 10. It's great because some of our content is for Drupal 10. We have a little bit of content for Drupal 7. Not really. And then we have a lot of content for Starshot and Drupal CMS. So one thing that Dries didn't mention in the Driesnote for some reason, I don't know why, Drupal 11 was released on August 2nd, 2024. Since the last Driesnote, I think it's kind of important to celebrate. It's great to have it out. And as one of my full stack community organizer duties, I created this release video for that, which may play or may not play. We'll see. So that was the Drupal 11 part of the talk. Thank you. That was the shortest way to summarize what's in Drupal 11. Go watch it next if you want to. So anybody who thinks that they just got on Drupal 10 and is way too soon to get Drupal 11 and we now need to move on. Yeah, only a couple of you. I'm surprised because we've been getting that a lot while we were working on Drupal 11 is, why already Drupal 11? We just got used to Drupal 10, but the good news is that Drupal 10 will be supported until mid-late 2026. So Drupal 11 is the first release in a long time where we chose to release a new version of Drupal. It was not forced on us to release it. There was no outside dependencies that were going end of life. There was no rush to release it, but we wanted to release Drupal 11 sooner so that it's better for your Drupal sites. So you can keep being on Drupal 10 for longer. And so now we can go into a longer term support version of Drupal 10. So how does that look like? So we have Drupal 10 was released, Drupal 10.0 was released in December 2022. We released Drupal 11 in August. We'll release Drupal 12 mid-late 2026. We already know that, so no surprises there. So we go to long-term support with Drupal 10.4 this December. And we'll have long-term support of Drupal 11 starting mid-2026 when around when Drupal 12 is released. And so we have the EOL in mid-late 2026 of Drupal 10 and likewise for Drupal 11. And so what this new system allows you to do is to stay on Drupal 10 long-term support and then move into Drupal 11 long-term support when Drupal 12 comes out, and then move into Drupal 12 long-term support when 13 comes out. So the benefit of this is that even though we have these minor releases that theoretically only break minor things, they sometimes break bigger things because we introduce new features and we can't take everything into account all the time. So this allows you to be on LTS versions of Drupal that have much less changes than regular minor versions. They will be focused on security fixes and focused on fixing upgrade path issues. And so will be even more stable than Drupal core already is, which is, I mean, Drupal core is already super stable, but this is going to be even more stable for you. So this allows you to move from LTS to LTS and be on a super stable platform. And also, by the time you need to move to Drupal 11, all of the ecosystem will be even more ready for Drupal 11. It's not bad right now, but it's going to be much better at that time. So in terms of timeline, it looks like this. So there's an overlap of an LTS version, and then the next one comes out, the previous one goes to LTS, etc. And then Drupal 7 is EOL next, not this year, is EOL next year. So if you are still on Drupal 7, you have the option of going to Drupal 10 LTS. It's going to be a stable platform for you for a while, where if you want to be more experimental, you can go straight into Drupal 11. This Drupal 11 still has the migration tools and the migration paths from Drupal 6 and Drupal 7. So you have a way to move. The way that we built Drupal 11 was basically to put stuff into Drupal 10. So if you are on a Drupal 10 LTS, you already have all the new things that were in Drupal 11.0. So the new navigation module, a bunch of the field UI improvements, all the things that were in the video that are new in Drupal 11, they are all in Drupal 10.4 LTS. So you can take all the benefits of those. And the only thing that we did in Drupal 11 is that we removed the old things that we deprecated. We removed a bunch of modules that we'll talk about briefly, and we updated some of the dependencies. So we are in a newer jQuery version, we are in a newer Symfony version, but all the new things that we built for Drupal in Drupal are already in Drupal 10, so you can enjoy those in Drupal 10 as well. These are the ones that we removed from core. The tour module we removed from core in Drupal 11. You may have seen in a keynote this fantastic tour feature that is coming to Starshot, slinging back in. But we'll talk about why is that a good thing and why that makes a lot of sense a bit later. And we removed a bunch of other modules as well. They didn't get enough interest in core. They weren't adopted well enough. They weren't maintained well enough. Some of them have better alternatives in Contrib. And some of the things, like the one I really like is what happened to statistics, is that got removed from core. And then it got a responsible maintainer that now has a vision of building a privacy-first statistics solution that fits with the modern privacy age. And so that's a kind of thing that I like to see, is when we remove something that nobody cares about in core, we finally give it to somebody that would care about it. They have a vision and they can implement it and bring it forward. So the modules that we removed, they stay as is in Contrib, and they may have new branches with new features in Contrib. There's some platform updates that we made to Drupal 11. They are not very radical. These versions of the platform requirements have been out for a while. But PHP 8.3 I guess, is a special thing. So if you are on Drupal 10, you don't necessarily need to move, but it's a great idea to move. So if you look at this benchmark, I don't know, benchmarks you may or may not believe. But this is a benchmark that's well known in the PHP sphere. And if you look at this, they benchmarked Drupal 10.1, and PHP 8.3 is a significant improvement for Drupal 10.1. So regardless of moving to Drupal 11 or not, save costs by moving to PHP 8.3, make pages faster. It's going to be great. And usually I have a long slide section here about the tools that you should use to upgrade, but basically you should use my module. It's good. Upgrade status. So the reason you should use it is because it gives you a to-do list of what you need to do, and for every single things, it groups them into next step suggestions. It tells you what the next step is, and sometimes the next step is it suggests another tool that you should use, but it tells you about the tools. So this is like the ground zero that you need to start with. You install it on a Drupal 10 site, and then it tells you what to do. It tells you about the system requirements. It tells you about all of your modules, everything. And then it suggests you all the additional tools. Another tool that I work on is deprecation status, which is tracking the readiness of the whole ecosystem for Drupal 11. So we are running this. We published the data on dev.acquia.com. So you go there, you can check this out. This is one snapshot of the top 200 projects from last week. Almost 70% of them are stable for Drupal 11. Another 10% are alpha, beta, or RC. And another 2.5% are dev compatible. So almost 75% or more than 75% of them are in some ways compatible with Drupal 11. This is the top 200. All of the projects are not as rosy, but these are the most common projects that people encounter. So it's not bad. Will be even better in the future. If you start updating to Drupal 11 and you find that your thing is not there yet, you have two options. First is the project update working group is a new concept that didn't exist before. Is a group of humans, pretty big group of humans that can intervene with projects. So if the maintainer disappeared or some other thing happened and it's impossible to upgrade the module to Drupal 11, then they have the possibility to temporarily intervene with the project and update it to Drupal 11 and then leave the project. So that's basically it's a very limited scope. They have very well-defined process and a very wide variety of people in the group. So it's not going to take over your projects if you have projects on Drupal.org, but they can help with the update itself. If that doesn't work or you don't have the time to wait that process, then you need to use Composer plugins. There's the Drupal Lenient Composer plugin that allows you to require projects that are not yet compatible with Drupal 11. And then there's the Composer Patches plugin, which allows you to actually make change the code to be compatible with Drupal 11. And this whole thing is reproducible. When you do Composer updates, it will apply the patch again and again and keep your project. So that's the practical details of Drupal 11. So as I said, there's no rush of updating to Drupal 11 right now, but it's looking pretty good. But we haven't only worked on Drupal 11 this year, obviously. So we also worked on the Drupal Starshot initiative. And the reason we started working on Drupal Starshot is Drupal is a very stable, very mature platform. But when we did this research in actually 2019, it was quite a while ago, we figured out that it's very mature, it's very stable, it's very complicated. So what we found when we were interviewing people is that many other systems, the response is much more positive at the start because it's easier to get started with. For Drupal, the response at the start is not very positive. But as you get to know Drupal, it becomes very positive. So we need some kind of solution to make the initial impression more positive, to expose the powers of Drupal in a way that makes it easier to get started with. And so we need something on top of Drupal core that does that. And that's what Starshot is. Want to take it on?
Sure, yeah. So in terms of, what is exactly stopping us from doing this? Every site I've ever seen uses like 70, 80 modules, and you have to keep all of those up to date. Drupal core itself is targeted at core developers. It's not friendly. Most people, including myself, when you first start, don't even realize there's a contrib ecosystem. You think this is what Drupal can do? It's pretty good, but where's the rest? The ability to go find the right module. There's 6 modules that all do the same thing. How are you to determine which one's the best one for your use case? Which one is the most most test coverage or the best user experience. There's a lot of different things. And if you ever do want to get a change into Drupal core itself, it's a very slow process. So the idea is that, if you have, actually, I don't remember what the slide's about. Oh, right. Yes. If you just have Drupal core, and you take Drupal core and then you build your site out of it, if that's the entire process you have, what if there was something sort of that sits in between them, something to help you sort of get from 0 to 60, and that is where Drupal Starshot comes in. It's aimed at ambitious builders, marketers, not technical folks who want to be able to do things without using a command line. They'll be able to easily add features with the features being described. If you know exactly what one module can do, you can use it to build a lot of different functionality. But that doesn't mean if you don't know what the CTools module is, you probably shouldn't download it. So the idea is that you can just, from a browser, be able to launch your Drupal site and start configuring it and build pretty incredible things. Right now we're focused more on the installation section. If you saw Dries's keynote yesterday, which I hope you all did, the installer work is already in place. You can, from a browser, go and without downloading Drupal, just install it and choose the recipes from the UI, and then have them already configured on your site when you get in there. The idea later to be able to take that site that you've built in the browser and deploy it on hosting, that's in the roadmap, but it's not built quite yet. So when thinking about what exactly is Drupal CMS or Starshot, as I will continue to call it for the rest of time. So if you start with Drupal core, we're treating Drupal core as a dependency. Drupal, whether it's Drupal 10.3 right now or Drupal 11.1 or 11.2 is coming out next 9 months from now, it doesn't really matter. It's a dependency, just like any contrib module. I don't necessarily need to worry about which exact version I'm on, as long as it's the best and most secure one. I don't really need to think about it that much. So in order to keep staying on the best and most secure version of Drupal and all your contrib projects, that's where automated updates comes in. If you set up automatic updates, then you don't even need to think about updating any of it. You just start with Drupal Starshot, and then you're set. But if you ever want to go find a new module to use, and the recipes that ship with Drupal Starshot aren't, solving your use case, then the project browser is included in Drupal Starshot that allows you to go browse the modules, based on both the popularity of the module and any attributes or the facets that you use to search for it. You can find the exact right module that you need. In addition, if you can use Project Browser to browse recipes, not just modules. And that will allow you to not only get the best module, but also the best sort of default configuration or best practices on top of the default configuration. There's plenty of modules out there with extensive admin configuration screens, and knowing exactly what the right combination of settings to configure it can be a daunting task. And even worse is then remembering how to do it the next site you build when you got your site exactly the way you wanted. So you can use either recipes provided by the community, or you can create your own recipes to sort of codify your best practices and your preferred settings. And then on top of that, eventually we'll have Experience Builder. And if you didn't see Lowry's session yesterday on Experience Builder, I would definitely make sure you go watch the recording when it's posted. There's a lot of exciting things coming with React-based editor of single directory components in a way that supplants the need for things like paragraphs or layout builder, and brings Drupal to compete with the best of breed solutions in the market. It's really exciting, and there's a lot to come there. So in order to get automatic updates running, we have this thing called Package Manager, and it's a small wrapper around Composer that allows you to perform Composer operations from code, either from the UI or from the CLI, and from within modules themselves. So that's the backbone of auto updates and Project Browser, in that it creates a little staging copy of your site, performs the Composer operations. If they fail, it's able to safely roll back, and otherwise you're good to go. and Project Browser also uses for projects and recipes that are not hosted locally. If you're not in your local code base like Starshots, then you can use it as well to get any repo from anything from Packagist, anything from Drupal.org, any of the recipes into your site safely and securely. It doesn't necessarily, Project Browser, as I said before, it doesn't really help you configure the module after you get it onto your site. But it does give you sort of ease of use of discovering exactly what a module is about, who it's maintained by, sort of the popularity of it, and like a quick little link to just to be able to install it from within in your Drupal site. And the recipes, as I mentioned, are in 10.3. So for all of you who are already on 10.3, you can already use them. And they're the base, the building block of everything we're doing in Starshot is recipes based. The ones that we are shipping with Starshot are, they will be in the repo. They'll be local to your file system when you start up, so you don't ever have to think about going and finding them. But there already exist community built recipes that you can use, and as well as developing your own locally and sharing them within your org. And then finally, Experience Builder, as I said, I couldn't say more about it. It's really, really exciting. It's already, they only started working on it a couple months ago, and it's already extremely impressive, and it's only going to get better from here. So definitely go check out the Lowry session, and if you're here on Friday for Contribution Day, make sure you go find the Experience Builder table. I think the most exciting thing for me about Drupal Starshot is the new models of collaboration we have. In other initiatives in the past, we find a team of maybe 2 or 3 people, and then you go and work on it, and you get a lot of contributions from 30 to 1,000 contributors throughout the community. But this is a brand new way of doing that. So the first step was to define a leadership team, of which Gabor and I are a part. There's a user experience lead in Christina, and Pam is the product owner. Suzanne is a marketing director, and Lenny's the delivery manager, with Dries as the product lead. And we meet, multiple times a day, every day, pretty much, in order to make technical decisions and product decisions and push forward exactly how we want to, how we're going to get this massive effort done by January 15th. In addition to the leadership team, there's an advisory council, which meets more monthly, comprised of end users and DA board members, DA staff members, core committers, and subject matter experts. And they're there to be, to help advise us and also then share the message wider within the community. The council members themselves from the board, they're from 3 different of the subcommittees on the board. And especially in the marketing and fundraising side, there's been a lot of push to get volunteers from the community to contribute. So we initially defined, I think, 19 different tracks of work. I think we're up to 21 and then maybe even 30, in a couple weeks. But there's a lot of different work that can be done right now. For example, one of the tracks was the installer work. That work is largely completed, and we'll be moving on to the next track. But for each track, we've asked different track lead who's an expert in that field to kind of own those things. And either some of them are technical people and they're planning on also doing the development, but some of them are just, they're subject matter experts and they know exactly what that area of concern is really about, and they can help find the right people to help build it. So what's in it for you all? If you think about it, the faster innovation cycles, we don't have to wait every 6 months for Drupal core to release. We don't have to worry about upstream dependencies and worrying about exactly which version of PHP we're going to be running on. Our release model is going to be quick and agile, and we'll be releasing this anytime we have a new feature that's worth sharing with everyone. It's going to be much easier if you just start with Starshot. As soon as you finish installing, you have a site that's demoable. If you pick the event recipes, then you'll have perfect, full calendar and smart date and recurring dates and all this stuff configured in a way that makes it really easy to make events. The different as I said earlier, like the biggest thing for me is the fact that there are always a dozen ways to do something in Drupal. Like for example, we were evaluating how are we going to have people log in. Lots of people like to log in with an email address. There are 4 contrib modules that allow you to log in with an email address, and we're going to figure out which one's the best one. And if you know the answer, come on Friday and tell us. So save us the research. But that consolidation of the contrib ecosystem is going to be a huge thing for Drupal. I'm really kind of excited about it. It doesn't mean that all the other modules need to stop development. There's always a reason to have a module that does things one specific way, but it is a really good, I think it's a good thing for Drupal to sort of have more codified and publicly shared best practices. So now we're getting into sort of questions. So we have a couple preceded questions, or do you want to jump right into audience questions?
No, I would like to maybe
Okay. I'll let you go through. Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, I wrote a blog post about 25 reasons I'm excited for Starshot. So I have a lot. What I like that Tim didn't mention is the easier to contribute to, is that I think that you have a lot of experience building on top of Drupal core. Most of you don't have a lot of experience working in core, but you have a lot of experience working on top of Drupal core. And we finally have a way to do that. And you can contribute your know-how to Starshot, and you can still contribute to the default download of Drupal that's built on top of Drupal core. So I think we've opened a whole new way of contribution possibilities that way, is that we are can build all of that know-how into the default download and make it easier to get started with for everybody. I also like that we are finally having this more complete product that will improve the experience for everybody, because core did not think about what happens to the admin menu if you have 100 modules, or how does the permission page will scale with these many things. I mean, there's issues for that, yes, but there's no solutions. And so now if the default product has 30 modules, it needs to deal with that problem in the default product that we are offering, because otherwise we are offering this default product with all of those problems. So we get core attention, like we get attention on those problems that core did not care about or did not have the means to solve, because it was not a problem in core. It was a problem when you've had all of those other things. So I think it brings in a lot of the things that you may have had issues or pain with, and provides potential solutions for them. And now we have a few preceded questions, and maybe we'll start with them. And in the meantime, you can think about some more. So these are some questions that we were getting before. So is Drupal CMS the same as Drupal 12? Now that we worked on Drupal 11, now we work on Drupal CMS, and we'll work on Drupal 12. And I think Tim already answered this if you listen carefully, is that Drupal core is a dependency of Drupal CMS. Like any other dependency, it doesn't really matter which version it is for Drupal CMS. So no, it's not. Drupal CMS is not the same as Drupal 12. So we'll keep working on Drupal 12. It's going to be the core stable technology behind Drupal CMS. And Drupal core will potentially enable more other versions of these starter things that would help start other types of sites that are not necessarily marketer focused. So it's not the same. So then what's the role of Drupal core now with Drupal CMS? So will stuff stop being added into core, or will more things be removed from core, or like what happens to Drupal core now? And we've had a lot of meetings about that with core committers recently, of like what to focus core on. And we don't have the official final public publishable answer yet, but the sneak peek is that Drupal core is for building things like Drupal CMS. And I think that was always one of the things for Drupal core to be, but Drupal core was also Drupal CMS before, and it now doesn't need to fill that role anymore. So that's why tour module was removed from Drupal core, because it's not necessary for all use cases. If you have a headless thing that is built on Drupal core and has like a Drupal CMS type of recipe thing with all kinds of headless features, you may not need tour module. It's just a backend for something, and you may not even look at that backend anytime. So we are removing the things that are not necessarily 80% use case for these type of things. And we will add things to Drupal core that are the 80% use case. So we'll keep adding things, but we'll not add that many things to Drupal core anymore because we have a new way of distributing versions of Drupal that are useful for people, that are easy to get started with. So that's the role. And there's going to be official announcement and more words about that later. And then there's this question that I already answered twice, is will there be other versions of Drupal? Okay, there's the marketers, but I'm not a marketer. Or I want a headless, or I want an e-commerce thing, or I want a hospitality based package or something. Sure, why not? So Drupal CMS is the first thing that we are focusing on to do. And we are experimenting with a lot of things in terms of like, how do we do user research? How do we make decisions? How do we include those country projects? How a release is going to work? How security support is going to work? So we need to figure out a lot of things before we start branching out into even more variants. But there's a possibility to have more variants like this. So there could be like a social thing. There could be a commerce thing, of course. Yes, the technology is there. So the plan for the future of Drupal core is to have some of these enabling technology in Drupal core, and then it can support these systems.
So one of the things that people ask me the most is, can I use these recipes on my existing sites? Because Drupal CMS is intended as a starting place. The whole point is to start with a brand new, fresh install of Drupal. The good answer is yes, of course. Now, if you already build out your event system, you might not want to use the Drupal CMS events recipe because you already like exactly the way you have it. But a good example is if you were building a site in America with an American audience and you want to expand it to another region, especially if it's in, say, Europe, you could use the Drupal CMS privacy event to implement things like GDPR and correct privacy policies and have that apply to your existing site, very straightforwardly. Another example would be multilingual content. You can always apply that recipe to any of the existing content types you have. It doesn't bring any content types of its own. So any of these recipes can be applied to existing sites. They can be reapplied to sites they've already been applied to if your site needs have changed. So it's definitely usable by anyone using Drupal 10.3 or greater. In the same vein, the answer to the question of can I move or upgrade my site to Drupal CMS is no. There's no reason to. Other than the installer, which is wonderful, you don't need to. You can reuse any of the recipes you like. If you really wanted to start over from scratch, you could, but that would be a very personal choice. And the last thing is, the most important thing for me is how to get involved. As I mentioned earlier, we have 19 or 20 different tracks of focus, events and contact form and the SEO and search and everything. And each of those things, there are already teams underway, but they need more help. So in addition to attending these sort of sessions and rewatching the keynotes, the contribution day is the best way. There's a Starshot channel on Drupal Slack, and all the code is in the Drupal CMS, Drupal _CMS repo on Drupal.org. So that's the most important thing. And there's also the landing page of Drupal.org/Starshot, which is sort of a dumping ground for all the best things and all the news that you need to know about Starshot. That would be my recommendation. And now we have time for questions. So please use the mic in the middle of the room if you have them. But while they're asking the questions, please fill out the online survey.
I have one from the app over here. Hi.
I didn't call on you.
Well, but
Fair enough.
I've got one on the thing. I'm here for a reason. My experience with 10.x core updates is the majority have made breaking changes that cause the white screen of death. When we are in an auto update world, will this lead to auto breaking, and how do we avoid it?
So the auto updates module is sometimes a misnomer. That you can have it configured automatically, but for many people, it's even easier to use it on demand. With a human in the middle of in a sense of using it to test your updates and then roll them back if they don't work. So no, you will be safe if you choose to use auto updates in that exact way. But of course, if you leave it unattended and let it run via cron or whatever, then yes, that's still a possibility.
A question there. Do you see Drupal CMS as a kind of a recipe with other recipes inside it? Or do you see it as a on product? For example, like you talked about Drupal versions. Is this a version of Drupal where we can Drupal commerce and Drupal CMR and those kind of things, and or is it just kind of a recipe? Yeah, I will start with that
Alright.
question.
So in implementation detail, it is a recipe consisting of many recipes. There is a sort of base recipe, what we're calling it, which installs the things that we know. We don't really care if you have an opinion about whether path auto is installed. We're going to do it because it's best for you. Just deal with that. But as you saw in the installer in the Driesnote, there are many optional recipes. There are even some that are not presented necessarily in the installer that are available later. And now recently we just got the ability for recipes to accept input, and that's possible from the CLI right now. We're building it in the UI. But things like, for example, if you're doing analytics, you want to have an API key. We need to be able to put that in. But that's an optional recipe. So it's recipes of recipes of recipes all the way down. But these recipes will eventually be exposed as their own packagist projects and could be used by other. As Gabor said, we could use Drupal core and recipes to build other kinds of new products like Drupal CMS. But Drupal CMS is a product.
Yeah, thank you. And then last question there is kind of, now when we will have thousands of recipes, how do we track the good ones and the bad ones? Do we have usage statistics? Do we have recommended starring, tagging, and kind of those kind of things? Are that in the plan of kind of deciding which of these hundreds e-commerce recipes I should use?
Right, that's a fantastic question. So right now, the recipes that we're building for Starshot are contained within a single mono repo, and we think they're the best ones. So that's the easy answer. But there are many, many already. There's a concept of a general project on Drupal.org that's sort of a current placeholder for where recipes can be created, and they already exist. The eventual plan is to have them be their own type of project on Drupal.org. And they would be similar to modules in that way, where they would eventually have popularity, usage statistics, etc. And Project Browser is already set up to be able to expose that once the data is available. So that is definitely in the roadmap.
Hi, I'm Gabby. So I think, the major question is around the hierarchy of how things are structured. From what I understand, it's a repository of recipes. You're saying that it's just one repository that centralizes all the recipes at the moment in Drupal CMS.
Correct.
And then obviously the goal is to have those as separate. I'm kind of trying to understand what's the difference in the Drupal CMS or the Drupal commerce in the future. And I think I've seen projects and recipes. How do we envision those as individual projects? How will that work within the community? Because I'm assuming in a similar path, I'm assuming that people would like to contribute to, I don't know, like an web conference recipe, but we don't want it to be as part of the Drupal CMS nor the Drupal commerce. Right. And we just want it to be a standalone recipe that the community will support.
Right. So any recipe on Drupal.org is already exposed to Packagist and can be used. And the idea right now, we literally put it in a mono repo just for our own sanity, because it's too many. There's too many things happening at once, and we need one repo just to be able to do our jobs. But with things like Git subtree splits, we can split each of those out into their own package, so they'll be presented as the facade as their own package. That can be then referred to and consumed by any other. Right now, even there are recipes in Drupal core as of 10.3 that are then referenced by Drupal CMS. They're also, instead of using the standard profile and just taking everything that standard profile does, we choose to use certain recipes from Drupal core and then use those to build. Drupal CMS is built on top of those. In the same way, if you were building your own, even commerce itself, if they really like something that Drupal CMS is doing, they could in turn then reference to those and nest it as its own dependency.
Yeah, to add to that, so we now have this solution of general projects on Drupal.org for your kind of recipe. The reason that we don't have a recipe type on Drupal.org yet is that we didn't want to prescribe how that should be done before we see how people start working with it. So I think once we see what kind of things it needs, then we'll have a better idea of what to do, and then we'll be ready to move them over to that whatever new type. Another technology that Tim worked on but he didn't mention is that Project Browser is pluggable in terms of its sources, so that it could have other sources of recipes or modules or projects. So if you are a university or if you have your own company internal recipes, then your customers can have a tab on Project Browser that's like my company recipes or these recipes approved by my provider, and they would be available there. So that's a possibility of like having a more controlled approach of offering those things, and they could be sourced from wherever you want. That's a pluggable source plugin solution in Project Browser. So there's so it's Drupal, everything's possible.
Thank you.
Hey guys, fantastic work on the project so far. I have some hosting related questions. And you already said, hey, okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic work so far. I have some hosting related questions. You said before that there's still decisions to be made about that side of things, but like, what are your current thoughts on how the hosting side of, the installer is going to work? So you've built something and now I want to take it and make it my own. And second question, have you considered or had discussions about a WordPress.com style, hey, here's a portal for Drupal websites?
So I'll take the first question first. Right now in the trial experience, once you build your site, you're stuck there. But that was in order to, that's the work that we did in August and September. So the work that's happening in October is to provide sort of like a zip export of your thing, which is, the database and the content you've created. The eventual goal is to have it be able that you could then from within the trial be able to choose from a list of hosts and have a one-click import. Now that's both up to us to provide the export correctly and them to dictate the import correctly and everyone to work together on that. But it's definitely on the roadmap and it's already being discussed for sure. So the second question, as far as you mean like the WordPress playground?
No, the kind of the .com site where you can go and create a blog and
You want to take that one?
The question was, have you had internal discussions about
the
that
quick
possibility?
answer is no. We have not had discussions about that, but come have discussions with us about it on Friday.
I've got
Oh.
two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. What do you think about the new solutions or kind of ideas like future-proofing features, like, for instance, customizable per user customization of user interface and accessibility, that kind of feature? Should that target Drupal Core 12 or Drupal CMS 2.0 or something else?
So it depends. I mean, there's a couple different things in there, right? So for example, the dashboard, if you have a dashboard and you want to customize it per user, that's possible with contrib modules. If you're talking about accessibility settings of like, I want dark mode or I want high contrast mode or fonts. For example, the Starshot is using the Gin theme, which has a lot of that customization built in. To answer your last part of your question, which was about core versus Drupal Starshot, if it's a feature of core already, then it's a core feature request. If it's something that really you think belongs in the framework itself, that every Drupal site, no matter if you're building a decoupled thing or a commerce thing or this, then Drupal core would be the right place for it. Otherwise, I would suggest as a Starshot feature. The other good news is no matter where you put it, if you put it in the wrong place, someone will help you put it in the right place. So, I would open the issue and start the discussion. There's also the Drupal core ideas queue, which I believe is still popular in usage. So there's a project called Ideas, and that is a good place to kind of start and build consensus. So that might be a good place to start. And Mark, you had from the internet?
Okay, so I got from Yaroslav, what happens if a recipe includes a module that conflicts with existing modules? Do we expect to have conflicting recipes?
So because it uses Composer, it'll try to resolve that conflict. And if it doesn't, then the recipe application will then fail and tell you why it failed and then give you a chance to fix it and then reapply.
Okay, and a couple more came in. We saw that Drupal CMS is all about installation. What about updates? Some features created by recipes may need changes at updates.
So every recipe, a tenet of recipes is that there is no update path. They are infinitely applicable. You can reapply them. Like, for example, if you have a recipe that modifies and says every content type on the site now has this new field, and you make a new content type, it's not going to automatically get that field. So you can go back and reapply that recipe that you already previously applied. It'll update your new content type. So, but if the recipe author decides to change exactly what the recipe does, then you would have to reapply. But there's no upgrade of any of it. And that's the thing that's going to save us, honestly. That's why install profiles are painful. We needed to get away from that. And this is the solution, is to just skip over upgrade paths for recipes.
And to that point, go ahead.
but-
Sorry.
But so recipes don't have upgrade paths, but the modules that the recipes install, they do. So the way I like to explain recipes is basically automated site building steps. So if you go and install 5 modules and like click 100 checkboxes and configure them, that process doesn't have an upgrade path either. So we are bottling up the installing the 5 modules and clicking the 100 checkboxes in the recipe. It still doesn't have an upgrade path, but it didn't have an upgrade path before either. So we're not taking anything away from you. We are making the process of getting to the 100 checkboxes and the 5 modules much faster, but we are not removing anything in the process. So this is, I think it's improving from where we are. It's not taking away anything.
And
this
we're
is the last question.
We're at time, and
Yes.
this rolls right into that. Does the introduction of recipes mean the end of installation profiles?
Boy, I hope so. No, honestly, I think that we haven't really come up with a new term for what this thing is. Like a top level recipe that contains a multitude of recipes that is a product idea. And, we're not calling it an install profile because that's a loaded term. But this thing that is Starshot, thing that might be Drupal Commerce, etc. Like, in addition to having just a single recipe that accomplishes a single task, but to have this larger ecosystem of recipes that are guaranteed to work together, which is a key thing, we don't have a term for that. So I would think whatever that is that we're talking about right now will supplant install profiles. But we need to this is the first official one, and there's a lot of best practices being sort of established right now and that are being documented. So that's the plan, though, for sure.
And
And we're at time. Thank you all so much.